guys, and welcome to the last video in this week-long self-isolation mini-series. It ended up getting pretty cold in the room. I just pulled the camera closer. So I have this blanket around me. I hope you will forgive me. But the reason that I decided to go with this topic for this video is because I was starting to feel it after filming the 4 videos prior to this. I've been sitting here filming now for about 6 hours. The videos won't be that long once I edit them down, but there's a lot of talking when you do videos. So I am going to do a video talking to you guys about how I broke my back and how I'm feeling years later. This happened back in 2014, so it has been about 5.5 years, I think, since this happened. It was Halloween. And I do actually have a video after it happened, explaining it. I am sitting in bed on bed rest, which we'll get to that, and I talk about it, and I even have some footage because I was vlogging the night that I broke my back, so I have the actual back break on camera, which is traumatizing. So I do have that video, and I should have watched that video to kind of refresh my memory before sitting down to film this one, but I haven't done that. So if I get any minor details wrong, I promise it's not in a malicious way. It's just that it's been 5.5 years and I might remember like small things differently than it actually happened. But I think for the majority, I will be able to get this story right. I hope so. So you can definitely watch that video if you want like more information. If you want to actually see the footage that I was filming that night and stuff, you can watch that video. I'll link it below. But I am going to tell my story from the point of view of 5.5 years later, what I can remember, and then also everything that happened afterwards and have led up to today. This topic was requested by a lot of people when I asked Instagram what videos you guys would like to see, and a lot of people ask me in every video in the comments, how are you doing since you broke your back? Are you still having pain? Do you still go to physical therapy? How was it being pregnant and having a baby with having a previous back injury? So I am going to just address all of that in today's video. I was sitting here, I filmed the other 4 videos that you guys have already seen this week, and my back was starting to really ache, and I thought I am just going to discuss my back right now because I'm thinking about it. I'm actually like kind of hunched over right now. In the other videos I've been more like, I wasn't like leaning against the back of the chair, but now I'm just kind of like letting my back be comfortable. And this blanket looks like a towel in the camera. It's not terry cloth, it's like fleece. I don't know why it looks like that. This story takes place in October of 2014. It was Halloween time. My now husband, who was just a boyfriend at the time and actually a fairly new boyfriend, was coming to Tennessee to meet my parents for the first time. So we were serious, you know, you don't introduce the parents unless you're serious, but it was still pretty new into our relationship. And so we flew to Kingsport, and I was vlogging the trip and stuff. So I do have videos of like the days leading up to this. And we decided to go to a haunted attraction. It was Halloween time, and there was a haunted attraction about an hour from our house, and it was called Frightmare Manor. And it was a place in the middle of nowhere that was, if I'm remembering correctly, it was held at the actual house of an old plantation where the guy like committed suicide by jumping off of his balcony after killing his family or something like that, some story like that. And it's now known as like a haunted plantation. And so at Halloween time, they make it even more haunted by doing a whole haunted attraction. So they have, you know, haunted houses you can go through. They have the haunted corn maze. They have, you know, hot chocolate and apple cider and like different snacks and stuff. It's just really like a cool place. So we went. It was me, Alex, my husband now, my boyfriend at the time, and then my sister Blair and her current flavor of the moment guy. I don't know. It was like the only time I ever met him. This probably scared him away because it was a dramatic night. So we drove an hour to Frightmare Manor and we spent the evening there. We had a great time. We went through all of the different haunted house options they had, and we were considering leaving when we decided to go ahead and try the last attraction, which was a fear fall. And the whole idea behind it was you were kind of like emulating the the guys leap to death off the balcony. It was a 30-foot free fall where you were not attached to anything. It wasn't like a bungee jump. It was a free fall. And you landed on one of those big like fireman mats, you know, the really thick mattress things. It was supposed to be safe. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. You climbed up 30 feet on this tower and then you jumped and you landed on this mattress. I don't know why we decided to do this because I am not typically an adrenaline junkie. I do really enjoy things like haunted houses, but I have never bungee jumped. I have never done anything that would make you think that I would be okay doing a free fall for 30 feet, but I don't know. I did. And I decided to volunteer to go first out of our group of 4. Again, I have no idea where my mind was at that night, but I decided to go first. So I jumped on my own free will. And when I landed, I shattered part of my spine.
Here goes Elle. She's getting instructed. There she is. Oh my god, oh my god. Oh my gosh, I don't know if I can do this. Okay.
You can do this.
Oh my gosh, this is scary. Okay.
I compressed my spine, so my spine literally crunched this way. And that's what it felt like, because when we got to the hospital and I was explaining to the emergency room doctor what had happened, I kept saying my spine went like this, and I kept making the motion, and he was like, your spine did what? We were like in the middle of nowhere at a small hospital. So, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So I landed on the mat and I immediately knew something was very wrong. I didn't feel pain yet, I don't think. I think the adrenaline did something. I just remember like knowing that something was very bad. I had thrown my back out one time in college. I had slipped on ice. I did go to school in Ohio and it was very icy in the winters. And one day I was walking to an 8 a.m. class by myself. It was still dark out and I slipped on a patch of ice and I fell so hard that I landed on my upper back. If you can imagine how hard that slip would have been. And I remember laying there, I couldn't breathe for a second and I literally got the winds knocked out of me. It took me probably 10 minutes of laying there before I could even stand back up. That's what it felt like at first. At first, I thought I had almost like had that same sensation of just in 10 minutes, I'll be fine. Like kind of catching my breath. I laid there for a few minutes and it was definitely apparent that something was wrong because you're supposed to just like roll right off the mat and then the next person jumps, and Alex was up there. And from his perspective, he tells me now that he knew something was wrong and he started running back down the stairs in order to get to me. At that point, I had rolled myself off the mat, and you're not supposed to move after a neck or back injury, but no one was helping me. No one from the attraction was like, you okay? So I rolled myself off the mattress and it was like, I don't know, a couple feet off the floor. I kind of like slid down the side and then my body just kept going. I like crumpled into myself. Like imagine a shattered spine, like, and trying to stand. And by that point, Alex knew something was really wrong. And Blair was like, what's happening right now? Like Blair was like, I don't understand. Like, are you okay? No? Okay. I knew that I needed to get to the hospital. I knew something bad had happened at this point. Again, wasn't feeling a lot of pain, or at least I can't remember it. I just remember like knowing something was wrong. I felt my spine crunch and compress. Like I knew something had happened to my back. I was crying and no one from the attraction asked me if I was okay. No one offered to call an ambulance. It was like they completely ignored me. I almost feel like they were trained to like not get involved. Come to find out that this place had like had another couple of dangerous injuries happen, which I'll get to. So Alex like mapped on his phone that there was a hospital like really close, a very small middle of nowhere hospital, like very, very close. And so I walked myself to the car. He kind of helped me, like he like held on to me, but I literally like walked to the car. I'm like really lucky because first of all, there are so many things that can go wrong if you move someone with a back injury. We got to the hospital and we walked into the emergency room. There was no one there. It was like crickets. I think there was one doctor like in the whole hospital working. It was very, very small. And I was just sobbing at this point. But at this point, I was feeling pain because I remember sitting in the waiting room at this emergency room sobbing. And Alex had called, either Alex or Blair had called my dad, and my dad got in the car immediately and drove down to the hospital because we were an hour away from home, and this was in the middle of the night. I think it was like 1 a.m. My poor dad. But my dad immediately got in the car and came down and met us at the hospital, and they took me into the back. And I remember when I was first explaining to them that my spine felt like it had compressed, they were like, spines don't do that. No. I don't think they were trying to be argumentative or ill-educated or anything. I think they just like didn't think that's what had happened. Like that's pretty like extreme. Like you walked in here yourself, you know? So they did get me on some pain medicine right away. And once the pain medicine, they did like an IV, went in, I was feeling much better and I could like communicate. They took me to get an x-ray, and that is when they found out that I did in fact shatter part of my spine. They were like, how did you walk in here? I'm like, I don't know, on my feet. They basically waited for my dad to get there. By that point, my dad was like almost there. By the time they got me back there, got the pain medication, got the x-ray, and then he came in and they showed him the x-ray. My dad is a doctor, by the way, if you don't know. So they showed him all of the x-rays and kind of like consulted with him. They agreed to release me to my dad's care, to drive me home and take me to our own hospital so that I could be back at home. And because he was a doctor, they allowed me to go with him. They had said that if it had been different, they would have had to do an ambulance transfer there. But because my dad, you know, is a doctor, they let me go with him. So my dad drove me, and Alex, Blair, and Blair's boyfriend all drove back. I think, you know what? No, I think Alex came with us, and then Blair and her boy drove the car back. We went straight to the hospital in Kingsport, and my dad had called ahead, so we didn't have to wait in the waiting room for that. We got taken straight back, but then we had to wait a really long time to have, I think it was an MRI, because at this point, this was like 3 a.m, and the MRI machines didn't open until 6 or something like that. So we literally just had to wait, but I was on pain medicine, so I was like, I was okay, you know, I was getting through it. So once we got to that hospital, oh my gosh, you guys, I was so annoying about this. The nurse came in and I informed her that I needed to go to the restroom, and I had a room with a bathroom in it. Like my little hospital room had a bathroom attached, like literally right there. The nurse told me no. She said, you have to use a bedpan. You cannot get up. You have a back injury. You cannot get up out of this bed. Like, I will help you. I promise you it's not a big deal. She was so nice. She was like, we're gonna use a bedpan. It's not a big deal. Like, you know, this is how we're gonna do it, blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, no, 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 no. I just flat refused, like a brat. Like, why? I don't know. In the moment, I just thought to myself, you know what? Like, I walked myself into this hospital room, and I walked myself into the other hospital room, and like, I'm gonna go to the freaking bathroom that's 2 feet away, and I'm not going to use a bedpan. I don't know what, I'm like, I don't have that kind of personality to just like put my foot down, but my foot was down. Like, I was not going to use a bedpan, so I didn't. I waited for the nurse to leave to go get the freaking bedpan, and off I scurried into that bathroom. Came back and I was done, and I was like, I used the restroom. And the look on her face. And I feel bad because she was being really nice. And like in her mind, like, I don't know if she could have gotten in trouble. I hope not. I don't know. I wasn't thinking straight, but I just remember that being a really funny memory, that was just such a thing that I was just not going to do. Like, I was not going to go in that bedpan. And I hope you guys don't think badly about me as a person for just like, for being so weird about that. But I just did not want to do it. So They took me to get an MRI, and there they were able to confirm that I did in fact have like the shattered part of my spine. I don't know what they could see on the MRI that they couldn't see on the x-ray. Like, I don't know, I'm not a professional. I had a consult with the neurologist, and they gave me my options, which was you can either have surgery, and we can basically go in with this, we can inject this like a liquid with a syringe into your spine. It would form and harden as if it was bone, and so it would basically like be an instant fix, and my back would be back to normal, no pun intended. But there were a lot of downsides to that option as well, and my dad really didn't want me to do the surgery. He said there are so many things that can go wrong with a spinal surgery. Like, right now you're not paralyzed. I know this injury is painful and it's terrible, but it could have been so much worse, and it's just not worth the risk. You're young still. You're gonna heal from this. Let your body heal. So we decided to go with option number 2, which was very strict bed rest, to let my spine heal on its own over a period of months. This was the hardest part of my entire life, honestly. They sent me home with a pain medication prescription and a back brace. So I was on bed rest for 6 months. At first, I wasn't able to get out of bed at all, except to go to the restroom with help. I was allowed to have someone help me walk 2 feet to the restroom and back, and that was it. Eventually, I got more and more kind of like free time, like out of bed as the months went on, but it was never much. It was never like, oh, you can like spend 3 hours in bed and then the rest you can be up. I was pretty much in bed for 6 months. I was on a lot of pain medicine at first, and I was able to wean myself off of it as the months went on, which I know is something that's very difficult for a lot of people. A lot of people who become drug addicts, it actually starts from an injury in which they are prescribed pain medicine and then they can never get off of it. And I was so scared of that happening to me. I was on Oxy for a couple of months, and I think that is the end of it for a lot of people. And I don't know how I don't want to sit here and be like, I'm so strong, I was able to like crack it. No, like, I don't think, it was really, really difficult to wean myself off of that stuff, but I was able to do it, and I've never had to take anything like that since. Weaning myself off of the pain medicine was literally the hardest thing that I've ever done. It was so difficult, and it has given me a whole new level of appreciation for people who struggle with drug addiction, to be honest. It's hard to be put on something like that for so long, for something that you need, something you genuinely need, but then they're just so addictive. So that was really hard, but I was able to do that. And then I went to physical therapy for a couple of months, and I was basically told that I would have some form of chronic pain for the rest of my life, and it was just something that I would have to learn to live with. Today, I don't struggle very much with pain. My back's kind of aching right now, but I think it's just that I've been sitting in a chair. I mean, I think even people with regular backs, sometimes their back will ache if they sit in a chair for 6 hours straight. But having said that, my actual day-to-day life has changed some since my injury. I tend to baby my back a little bit in order to not have the pain flare up. I don't really overstress it. From how I was explained it's not, you can definitely strengthen your back by strengthening the muscles around it and stuff through something like physical therapy. But I was basically explained by my neurologist that because of the way my injury was, I was always gonna have some form of pain no matter how strong it was. Certain things were going to cause the pain to flare up. And so over the years, I've learned to sit in positions that are more comfortable for it long term, and not do certain things for too long that I know flare up that pain. For instance, if I'm doing something like cleaning or organizing and I'm bending over a lot over and over and over again, that is a recipe for a back flare up. From how I was explained it, I hope I explained this correctly. doing that like every day, like training your body, strengthening those muscles and the bending down and up isn't something that's going to help it like not hurt. Again, I just have like learned what flares up my pain, and I've like learned to limit myself. I am less active than I was before. I was actually like a runner, a small runner. I loved running before. And I always loved my elliptical, and I've always loved cardio before this. And I still have my Bowflex and I still try, but I definitely am not like as fit as I was before. Just because it just flares up my pain. I'm just doing my best, okay? I rarely need to take anything for it. If I do, it's like a Tylenol, but it's not very often. And even right now, I'm like kind of hunched over and my back is aching, but I'm not gonna take anything for it. It's not like killing me. It's just aching, you know? So it almost feels like I need like a heating pad or something on it, and then it would feel better. When I got pregnant with my son, I did not know how my pregnancy was going to feel with my back. I was high risk because of my back injury, and I knew that the chances of me needing to do a C-section was very high because of the location of the break in my back. When you are giving birth vaginally, your hips widen and the bottom part of your spine kind of like moves a little bit in order for the baby to come through that canal. If you look at pictures of the skeleton as a baby is coming through the birth canal, you can actually see where the spine kind of starts to like bend a little bit in order to make room. I looked at pictures of that once and I was like, wow, that explains a lot. And my doctor was a little bit worried that if I attempted a vaginal birth that I could actually re-fracture my back by the strength of pushing. For my doctor, she was like, you know, she was so supportive of whatever I wanted to do. She said, if you want to attempt a vaginal birth, I will be right there monitoring you and we can try it. But just know that it might turn into an emergency C-section. Obviously, any birth might turn into an emergency C-section, but it was more likely. And I kind of waffled over whether I wanted to try a vaginal birth up until like 3 days before I was scheduled for my C-section. I was doing a cervical check at the doctor, and she reached up there and she said, girl, this baby has a big head and you have very narrow hips. Like, even if you didn't have a back injury, I would maybe be thinking you would maybe need a C-section. And that was it. I was like, let's just schedule a C-section, and that way I won't have to like risk it. So I did do a scheduled C-section. It was incredibly easy. I was up walking within a few hours of the C-section. It was totally fine. I will continue to have C-sections with my future babies. My doctor did tell me that she does not have a limit for how many C-sections she will allow a woman to have, as long as the woman waits at least a year between getting pregnant. Because that was one of my big things, is if she told me like I'm only comfortable with 3 C-sections, I probably would have been more likely to want to try the vaginal, because I don't want the number of kids I can have to be limited by something like that. Which obviously it's still depending, you have to reevaluate it after every C-section. A doctor can say, well, you can have as many as you want, but if you have a really traumatic one, or if you have something go wrong in one, it might change. So I'm aware of that, but basically my doctor said that I'm good to go. And she just said I needed to wait 12 months between having a C-section and getting pregnant again. So we didn't start trying for baby number 2 until we hit that 1-year mark with our son. Other than the delivery being a C-section due to my back, I really didn't have any issues with pregnancy with my back. I don't remember it hurting any more during pregnancy than it does just in every day-to-day life. Maybe more towards the end when he was getting really heavy, but I remember the pain being more in my hips than it was, or like my pelvis, than it was in my back, even at the very, very end of the pregnancy. So I was really lucky. That was something I was worried about. I was worried about the pain levels with my back, especially later in pregnancy, but it ended up not being something that was an issue, which was really lucky. One question that I get a lot is whether I sued the place that I broke my back at for negligence or for anything else, or if I didn't, and if I didn't, why? So I'm gonna address it because I never have before. I did not sue Frightmare Manor for a couple of reasons. One is I did sign a waiver, and you know what? There's a lot of laws around waivers. A lot of times, even if you sign a waiver, depending on how your injury is, you still might be able to go after the company. The real reason why we didn't sue is because my family is just not a sue happy family. We're just not. If we hadn't been able to pay the hospital bills, if we had been in a different situation, maybe we would have, but it just wasn't a fight that we wanted to fight. It's just not something that we wanted to do, and I don't regret that looking back on it. I don't know if we would have even been able to because of the waiver. Like, it's just not something we even looked into. We didn't have any desire to sue them. Do I think that they kind of treated me a little bit badly in the moment? Yes, like no one helped me, but you just don't know what was going through their mind. You don't know how serious they realized it was. There's a lot going on. No, we never sued them. Looking back on it, I don't wish that we had. It just, it just didn't need to go there. And again, if I had been in a different situation, if I hadn't been able to afford my bills because of it, that's one thing, but we just decided that it just wasn't something that we wanted to do. I mentioned earlier that there were other injuries that had happened at Frightmare Manor that we found out about, and so I figured that I would just go ahead and tell you one of the stories because I mentioned that in the video and then I skipped right over it when we got to the hospital. But when we were at that little small middle of nowhere hospital getting my first x-ray, the doctor was like, what happened? And I told him that we had done this fear fall at Frightmare Manor, and he immediately rolled his eyes inside and he was just like, that place. And he then goes on to tell us that there was a guy that came into the emergency room with a spine fish stuck in his throat. Spine fishes are, I think that's the word for it. I don't know. He called it a spine fish, but he showed us a picture. It's the type of fish that is like, when its spines are in, it looks like a fish, but then when its spines are out, they go out like this all down the line. So basically what it was is this guy got dared by Frightmare Manor, in one of their events, one of their things that they were doing, to swallow a spine fish. And they're small, so if you swallow it, if it goes all the way down, you're fine. But what ended up happening is he kind of choked on it, and then he freaked out and he tried to pull it back out, and it literally ripped his throat. This is truly the kind of story that you hear that you don't think is real. It sounds like an urban legend, but this doctor told us about this, and he was like, I will never let my kids go to Frightmare Manor. So it could have been worse. I'm not dumb enough to swallow a spinefish, but having said that, I was dumb enough to decide to jump 30 feet to my back broken fate. So who's smart? I don't know. I hope you guys enjoyed this story time, and I know the topic is dire, but hopefully it kept you a little bit entertained. I hope you guys enjoyed this series this week, 5 videos in a row. If you haven't seen all 5 of them, make sure to check them out because I've been sitting here filming for about 7 hours now, and I would love it if you guys would watch them. So make sure to subscribe, hit that bell to be notified. My videos are not going to everyone's feeds, so if you see this one, definitely make sure that your bell notification is turned on. That way YouTube will push my videos to your feed when I put up new ones. If you guys enjoyed this mini series, I will consider doing another 5 videos of a mini series, maybe the week after next, or maybe next week, depending if I can film some this weekend. We'll see, but I'll definitely need you guys to leave me a comment telling me that you want to see that. And if you do, give me some video ideas because I feel videoed out right now, but I know you guys can come up with some good ideas. So for now, I'm gonna go. I smell dinner cooking. Alex is cooking beef stroganoff tonight for dinner, and he timed it to work with the filming of this last video, so I'm excited. I'm gonna go eat that. Guys, stay safe, stay inside, don't get the virus, please, and I will see you guys with my next video. Bye.